Hello class, how's everybody doing? We're going to take a look at section 37 today. Some of the topics I'm going to talk about are the idea of divine right, which absolute monarchs or kings believed in, gave them all the power. Some of the absolute monarchs we're going to speak about today are Philip II of Spain. He ruled Spain in the 1500s and made a lot of money colonizing the New World. Another absolute monarch we're going to talk about is Louis XIV from France. He was also nicknamed the Sun King, and he ran France. Another absolute monarch we're going to talk about is Peter the Great. He was the Tsar of Russia, which we call a king of Russia. And he had an idea of westernizing Russia, making Russia improve themselves and get themselves on the level of Western technology. And the last absolute monarch we're going to talk about is Akbar the Great. He was a leader of the Mongol Empire in India, and he was a very just ruler and very tolerant of others. So, for the first part, divine right, it's a belief that God has come down from the heavens and blessed a royal family and made them his representatives on earth. Absolute monarchs believed in divine right, that God blessed them to rule, and they could actually rule as God kings on earth, and they were above the law. This was a God-given power that people used to believe in. One such example of an absolute monarch is King Philip II of Spain, and he ruled Spain around the 1500s. His empire covered much of the New World. He sent conquistadors to Central, South America, and even parts of North America to claim land for Spain. And the Spanish ruled the land ruthlessly, and they used the policy of mercantilism, meaning all the money they made in the colonies would basically be sent back to Spain to make Spain more powerful. Some of the products that the Spanish were making money were sugar, coffee, tobacco, and cotton. Slaves were imported to work for free under horrible conditions. People were taken from their families in Africa and brought to the New World as slaves. King Philip collected so many profits. Next, another important absolute monarch is the European king Louis XIV. He was the king of France. His nickname was the Sun King. He believed that the sun rose and set because of him, and that he had all sorts of power. That was his nickname. He'd also go around saying, "I am the state." He didn't believe anybody could tell him anything that he didn't already know. He ran France as he saw fit. Now, most of the money that Louis XIV got would come from his colonies in Northern America, from the fur trade and trapping. He made so much money he was able to build one of the most famous palaces in Europe, and it was the Palace of Versailles outside of Paris. This palace was so big it had over 2,000 rooms. It was 19,000 acres. It was larger than the island of Manhattan, and there was 15,000 fountains. Louis wanted to show the world he was so powerful by having such an incredible palace. And the palace is still in France today. You can visit it. Next, Peter the Great from Russia. He was a famous king in Russia. He wanted to elevate Russia and make them like the West. So he had a policy of westernization, where Peter the Great embarked in a grand embassy to westernize Russia. He would travel all over Europe, and he would see what other countries did well. Once he found out something the other country did well, for example, clockmaking, he'd purchase several clocks, and he'd get his people trained on how to recreate those clocks and bring them back to Russia. He also really believed in navigation and sea trade. So Peter the Great tried to open up warm water ports for Russia so they could also get involved in trade, because he knew that made other colonies rich. He did argue with the noblemen in Russia. The noblemen, he would basically make them shave their beards to make them look like they were more European, as opposed to having the long style beard. He also adopted Western military policies and tried to improve his army so they could become more powerful. And another crazy fact is the potato. He introduced this crop to Russia, and it increased the health of the Russian people and their diets. Peter the Great was known as a westernizing king. He wanted to improve Russia and learn from other Western countries. Another ruler that was an absolute ruler in India would be Akbar the Great. He led the Mughal Empire of India in about the 16th century. And he was very tolerant of other religions and other people. He would accept other people into his empire and treat them equally. Now, in his reign, he was the person who started the Taj Mahal. And it's one of the most beautiful, in my opinion, palaces that were ever built. And the Taj Mahal still stands in India today. And Akbar the Great, he was extremely tolerant. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And I hope you enjoy this. If you have questions, you know how to get a hold of me. Thank you.